Welcome to this session. Before we go to this corporate strategy, kindly read this turnaround strategy adopted by IBM. This is available to you on page number 130 in the book on strategic management. So, what is this turnaround strategies? A small this thing is given. Turnaround strategies lay emphasis on the improvement of efficiency and are appropriate when a company is facing problems, but the problems have not become critical. Kindly note that they have not yet become critical. Such a situation calls for two steps. One is construction, initial effort to stop the bleeding, consolidation, implementing a stabilizing program. So, what all we discussed about employee morale, experience curve relationships, innovation, all that. So, the company should take some proactive measures. This is what was faced by even by big companies. So, the company listed is IBM. Reading from page number 130 of the book on strategic management, it's written by me. During the 70s and the 80s, IBM dominated the computer industry worldwide. It was a market leader in both large mainframe and small personal computers. Along with Apple, IBM set the standards for all personal computers. Even now, when IBM no longer dominates the field, personal computers are still identified as being either Apple or IBM style PCs. IBM's problems came to a head in the 90s with the company's computer sales falling. More companies were choosing to replace their large expensive mainframes with personal computers, but they weren't buying the PCs from IBM. An increasing number of firms like Hewlett Packard, Dell, Gateway and Compaq had entered the industry. This is what happens when your competitor comes in, matches your product and able to offer at a lower price. They offered the IBM type PC clones that were considerably cheaper and more advanced than the IBM PCs. IBM's falling revenues meant corporate losses in 92 and 93. Industry experts perceived the company as a bureaucratic dinosaur that could no longer adapt to changes. Its stock prices fell to $40 with no end in sight. So, this is what happens when you get into this doom loop business. IBM's BOD hired a new CEO, Louis Gerstner, to lead a corporate turnaround strategy. At Big Blue, the nickname IBM earned from its rigid dress code policies. So, they were all coming with these blue dresses. To stop the flow of red ink, the company held its long held no layoffs policy by reducing its workforce by 40%. Under Gerstner, IBM reorganized its sales force around specific industries such as retailing and banking. Decision making was made easier. Previously, a top executive of the PC division, Joseph Formicelli, said he had to go through seven layers to get things done. Firing incompetent employees could take a year, so you pawned them off to another group. Strategy presentations were hashed over so many times, they got watered down to nothing. Under Gessner, however, formal presentations were no longer required. The emphasis shifted to quicker decision making and a stronger customer orientation. So, what is the result of all this? In 87, customers had been forced to wait for 5 to 7 years for a new mainframe series. What is the present day scenario? IBM produces a new line almost every year. Gessner personally talks with at least one customer every day. The company's PC business, which had market share and had generated huge losses in 90s, has become profitable. So it went up in 96, now also fairly doing well. The corporation has still a long way to complete its turnaround, but anyhow, this is the method which IBM adopted to come around in the marketplace. So, to get out of that doom loop. So, even for a large company like IBM, getting out of the doom loop was not a small task. So, you can imagine the fate of smaller companies. It is a very arduous task for them if they get stuck in this vortex of the doom loop. Now, when you look at the corporate strategies of a firm, if you see the important issues that are involved in corporate strategy are the company's orientation towards growth, stability or retrenchment. This is referred to as directional strategy. So, many times when you are listening to a presentation by Hindustan Lever, these questions keep on coming in the minds of the prospective employees, that is the students. They say, how good is the personnel policy of the company? Will we be fired without notice? Is there certain yardsticks? So, the personnel manager comes into play, he says, gives all the yardsticks before the company comes to a decision. So, the 70s and 80s, if you are working in Tatas, people were very wary when they are going to get a pink slip from the management, because this pink slip was almost considered as a notice to the employee that he should be looking out for alternative jobs. Okay. Before they come, suppose you are not looking out, then the company will be left with no other alternative except to retrench you. So, most of the engineers working in organizations like Tata Consulting Engineers or even in a public sector organization at that point of time, that is Engineers India, they were very much concerned about this pink slip, when will it land up on their table. The one way of looking at it is you should not get too much shackled by these types of developments. Suppose it happens, do not get worried. So, this is in fact this is a very common scenario in the American market. So, it happened to one of my own students who landed up in a good job as soon as he landed in the United States. He was hired by the vice president of that company. That was a weekend, that is Friday. So, Monday he goes to the company, he finds that the vice president himself is not there. So, very hesitantly he goes to the private secretary of the vice president, tells her that I am so and so from India. The vice president had given me a job, he had hired me, wanted me to come from today. And to his surprise, this private secretary replies, yes, we know, he is not with us anymore, but you can continue, you can start working. So, this boy, a young boy at that point of time, got in fact so much almost paralyzed, saying what if I am going to lose the job within a week. So, he had called me from US at that point of time, these IST calls, giving me this. I said, why do you want to waste your dollars on all this? So, I had to console this boy, one, and I had also to infuse confidence in him. So, I told him, suppose this company is trying to take this method, let us say that whatever you are saying, that they fire you in 1 week, that is a fear that you are having. There must be some other company to hire these fired workers also, is not it? So, do not bother whether you are going to be fired or whether you are going to be kept. Before firing, at least they will give you some indications that you are going to be fired. They will not fire you all of a sudden, even though they can do it, they will give you some options. So, that option of time period you can make use of as a leeway to land up in some other organ. So, this boy did not get any, what do you call, he was not fired, he became a big man in that same company, all those types of things, like almost all the majority of the Indian youngsters have become working in the US market. Okay. The markets in which the company competes through its products or business units. This is referred to as portfolio strategy. So, this is you are having so many portfolios, that is, a company might be having so many portfolios. When it is having so many portfolios, an entrant into the company or even an established person in a company will be working in certain portfolios only, not in all portfolios, kindly note that. So, there may be business units with a company with which you may be associated, let us say lamps division, you may be associated with the lamps division, some other person may be associated with some other type of units. So, all these were these are referred to as portfolios, and in order to analyze these portfolios in the marketplace, we make use of certain matrices. The most important or the most fundamental matrix that you make use of is the BCG matrix, which we will discuss very shortly. So, activity coordination and transfer of resources for achieving product capabilities among product lines and business units. This is referred to as parenting strategy. This parenting strategy we will take it up a little later, but before taking that parenting strategy, we will look at some matrices for evaluating the portfolio. So, this portfolio analysis becomes very important, and in order to do this, we make use of some matrices. One of the matrices that we make use of is the BCG matrix. This BCG matrix is, if you see, BCG stands for the Boston Consulting Group. This is a consulting group. Let us look at some of the portfolio matrices you can make use of to analyze the portfolios in an organization. So, one of the fundamental portfolio matrix which most of the organizations make use of in the present day context, it is called the BCG growth share matrix, BCG groups growth share matrix. So, this came out of this consulting company, this Boston Consulting Group. They also operate now in India as well. Earlier a US company, now operates from India also. Now, if you look at this matrix, what is it that you find? You find that the x axis refers to the relative market share. Relative market share is with respect to the leader. Where does the company come in? So, suppose it is at 1x, he becomes the leader. Suppose with respect to a particular SBU, you are at 1x, he is the leader. Suppose he becomes a small correction. Suppose you are at really moving to the left side of 1x, you are moving towards the leadership position with respect to the SBU. So, the y axis or the vertical axis of this matrix is what is called the market growth rate. When does a market become attractive for investment? So, if you see this matrix, there is the line separating the bottom and the top portion of this matrix is at 10%. So, any company which wants to enter into the market, suppose the growth rate is more than 10%, then it is likely to view that with a positive mind, that is entry into that market segment with a positive mind. Now, what is it that you see in this graph? This graph is a semi-log graph, kindly note that. What you see as market growth rate is in percentage. What you see as relative market share is in the logarithmic scale. So, that is why it is a semi-log graph. What is it that this matrix gives to a company, or what is it, what are the types of inputs it can give to a company? If you see, this matrix is divided into 4 quadrants. The first quadrant is the question marks, the second quadrant is the stars, the third is the cash cows, and the fourth is the dogs. As a strategic planner, what you have to do with respect to an organization and its different SBUs. This planning, that is a strategic planning, and the role of the strategic planner is to provide a viable fit between organization's objectives and its changing market opportunities. So nicely written, that is, a strategic planner should provide a viable fit between the organization's objectives and its changing market opportunities. So, if you look at it, when you are coming out with a new product or when you are introducing a product for the first time in the market, you do not know what is going to be the future of that product in the marketplace. So, that is where this product actually comes into this question mark category. So, if you see these question marks, this is in fact this matrix, what you see the different circles, it is drawn, it is a real matrix drawn at that point of time by this Boston Consulting Group with reference to I think a pharmaceutical company. So, they drew this matrix and showed them the different SBUs where they are. So, they saw there are 3 of them in the question marks, 2 of them in the stars, 1 in cash cows, 2 in dogs. So, if you really see when you are introducing the product for the first time, you do not know with certainty whether the product will click in the marketplace or not. So, that means to say you are operating in this first quadrant, that is the question marks. So, when a portfolio is in the question marks, what should be the role of the strategic planner? The role of the strategic planner is to build, that is this question marks he has to build, that will definitely call for investment. Why does he want to build? He wants to build to move this portfolio from the question marks towards the stars. So, the idea is to move the portfolio from the question marks to stars. So, this is when the portfolio moves towards stars, the objective of the strategic planner should be to hold on to that star position. So, you are moving to a leadership position. If you really see one of these SBUs with reference to this company is moving towards the leadership position and about to enter this cash cows. So, when this portfolio is in is in stars, it still needs investment. You have to invest, that is financial resources, to see that its place in the star category can be held on as long as possible. That is, the portfolio remains in the star category to the extent possible. Now, when you are not able to hold on to stars, that is the portfolio is not able to hold on to stars, it moves towards cash cows, that is it moves from the stars to cash cows. So, when it moves towards cash cows, what is the indication? The indication is to reduce the investment in that particular portfolio and harvest this cash cow. That is, you have to see whether this cash cows can give you still without investment good returns. So, in fact, when you are looking at harvesting, you look at it for weak cash cows. Suppose it is a very strong cash cow, you are seeing with respect to this particular company, that is this SBU at number 5, it is still strong. You do not have to think about harvesting it straight away, because you can hold on to this cash cow to milk it, because it can give a good returns to the company. Suppose you find that the cash cow has become weak, then you can go towards harvesting, that is the strategic planner can go towards harvesting. So, this for harvesting can be for weak cash cows, can also be used for question marks and dogs. The last point, you are seeing two portfolios with respect to this company underdogs. What should the strategic planner do with respect to these SBUs? What should be his portfolio strategy? His portfolio strategy should be to divest, that is for question marks and dogs which are a drag on company's profits. They are eating up the company's profits, not really providing the type of return that the company would have sought after. So, all these points I have discussed in my book on strategic management. It is available to you in page number 130, I think, yeah. Kindly go through that, you will get a good idea of how this BCG matrix can be drawn and what is the in fact at page number 131 we discuss portfolio analysis in fair detail, that is with respect to net cash flow, state of development and the risk. Then in page number 132 we discuss the Boston Consulting Group's growth share matrix. So, if you really see, I am reading from this. The model shown proposes a separate strategy to be developed for each of the units depending on its location in the 2 by 2 matrix. Relative market share is defined as the market share of the relative business to the market share of its largest competitor, that is the leader in the marketplace. Hence, a relative market share of 1 above 1 belongs to that of the leader. So, it is normally assumed that a business with a growth rate above 10% is attractive. The BCG matrix is plotted on a semi-log graph with the business growth rate expressed in percentage and relative competitive position in log form. Business units are categorized as one of the following 4 types for the purpose of strategic decision making. So, if you look at question marks, it is also referred to as problem child or wildcat. They have the potential for success, but need heavy investment. So, where does the money come? You have to draw money from other mature products. Stars are the market leaders, they are at the peak of the PLC. PLC refers to product life cycle and can generate enough cash to maintain their high share. When market rate slows down, stars become cash cows. Cash cows business units in this category bring in more money than what is required to maintain their market share. They are in the outer end of maturity in the PLC and are milked for cash to be invested in new question marks. Question marks unable to have a dominant share in the market slowly become dogs. Dogs have low market share and do not have the potential for cash generation. They have to be either sold off or harvested carefully for whatever cash they may bring in. So, how to construct this BCG matrix is also given in page numbers 133 and 134. That is what should be the dia of these circles which we are seeing here. That is, one is having a particular dia. How do you get this dia? So, there is a formula which is being used by this company to get at each of these circles. So, when it was this was the BCG matrix which was introduced by this group. Now, it has gone into what do you call a few changes. So, the strategic planner, he was interested in the investment portfolio, future profit potential and strategy. Now, the BCG group has come out with what is called the new BCG matrix. The new BCG matrix, if you really see, again a 2 by 2 matrix where you are looking at competitive advantage, number of approaches to achieve competitive advantage. So, if you really see the types of blocks which you are getting in this 2 by 2 are under the category of fragmented, specialization, stalemate, volume. So, this is the, suppose you, depending on the number of approaches, whether you have few approaches or many approaches, all those types of things. Now, if you look at the BCG matrix with reference to the different blocks which are shown there, look at the fragmented block. It is small and regionalized. Profitability not related to size. Advantage gained by focus. No premium on growth. Example is a specialty restaurant or designer labels. So, the best example for this would be some of the restaurants which are operating in Bangalore, well known by their name. One could be the MTR, started as a small unit in a small, in an area which is very close to Lal Bagh in Bangalore, now has become very popular throughout the country for its tasty dishes. So, this is and some of these the business has improved so much for this MTR brand. It came out with different food mixes. You have different mixes with reference to its dishes. One of the sought after dishes when it was introduced was its rava idli. So, you have the rava idli mix which is coming in. So, instant rava idli mix, you can use that to produce the same type of rava idlis which MTR gives in its hotel. So, these types of designer label which MTR has come out with reference to its products has been highly successful in the marketplace and has given it a distinct competitive edge. Okay. Now, some of the companies which are operating, they are operating in a highly specialized field. For example, these fire extinguishing companies or some of these companies in the supercomputing field. So, there what is the objective of these companies? These companies are operating in focused segments. They have steep learning curves. So, the result is when you have this steep learning curve, the type of concentration that is expected from the workforce on in these types of segments is very high. So, the example that is taken is that of Cray research in the field of supercomputers. So, you name supercomputers, this Cray research in the United States comes out as a top company. Suppose it is a stalemate where it is difficult to gain competitive advantage, then the company gains this competitive advantage by its sheer sustaining power. So, example that is taken is that of Kellogg's in India. Kellogg's comes out with its well known product, that is the corn flakes. But there are also so many local players who come out with corn flakes in different cities in India. If you take a city like Bangalore, there are a dime a dozen type of players coming out with their own corn flakes. Now, with all these local players also, if Kellogg has to really make a mark or make an impact and sustain in the marketplace, what is it that drives towards sustaining it? It is the brand name of Kellogg, one, and because it has survived in the US market, the western market, it can draw upon its pool of reserves to sustain itself in the Indian market. That is what it is doing in the present day Indian market also. So, where there are so many players whose products are equally good or perhaps sometimes even better than that of Kellogg's. Okay. So, Kellogg's is able to hold on because of the sheer sustaining power. So, this brings you to one of the, what do you call, I might have given this particular example in the earlier sessions also. You go towards you discuss the Mahabharata. If you discuss the Mahabharata after the war was over, what did the Pandavas do? They transferred the kingdom to Parikshit, and Parikshit was who is Parikshit? Parikshit is Abhimanyu's son. So, this Parikshit was made as the king. They said, you rule the kingdom and we are moving towards the Himalayas. Okay. So, towards heaven. So, that is called those of you who are familiar with Mahabharata, these are called different parvas. So, the point is, when Parikshit ruled, he ruled well. Due to in one of his hunting expeditions, he asked a sage who was in meditation, where did this animal go, the animal which he wanted to hunt. Because the sage was in meditation, he did not answer the king. The king became angry, looked around, there was a dead snake. He put that dead snake on the neck of this sage and walked off. Now, the sage's son came and saw around the neck of his father there was this dead snake. The sage's son was also a sage with extraordinary powers. What did he do? He immediately cursed the person who did this act. He said, whoever has done this act to my father will die of the bite by the snake only within 7 days. So, this commotion made the father to open his eyes, and through his divya drishti, he could make out that the person who has done this is none other than the king. So, what did he tell his son? He told his son, go to the court of the king and tell him that you have done this. The son obeyed the commandment of his father, went to the court of the king and said, this is what you did to my father, so I have cursed you. If you can save yourself, please do that. This is on the instructions of my father. So, what did the king do? The king announced throughout the kingdom, that is, suppose there are people who can bring persons back to life bitten by a snake. They can come towards the king's court and they will be handsomely rewarded. Nobody was prepared to go to the king's court. That means they were not very sure. Suppose the king is bitten by the snake, they can bring him back to life. So, one day they find that one Brahmin boy is moving towards the king's court. So, this Brahmin boy, when he was moving towards the king's court, the job of killing the king was given to one of the serpent kings, that is Takshaka. So, this Takshaka was observing what is happening. So, he found that this boy is moving towards the king's court. So, when he is going towards the king's court, he asked him, why are you going towards? And this boy told him, this is the curse which the king has got, and this is what he has announced, and I am going towards the king's court to bring him back to life if he is bitten by the snake. Then this Takshaka got stunned. He said, can you really bring him back to life if he is bitten by the snake? He said, yes, I can bring him back to life. Then this Takshaka said, I am the serpent king. I would like to test your powers. I will bite this tree. This tree will get reduced to ashes. Bring it back to life. This boy, without any hesitation, said, yes, you can do that. So, Takshaka bit the tree got reduced to ashes. Then what happened? This boy, by his powers, brought the tree back to life. So, what did Takshaka make out of this? He made out that this boy is capable of bringing the king back to life if he is bitten by me. Then he told this boy, what is the type of reward which the king is going to give you? He said, he is likely to give me one bag full of gold coins, that is varahas, okay, gold varahas. Then Takshaka said, look, I will give you 2 bags full of varahas, gold varahas. You do not embark on this mission, because the king is destined to die. Do not try to save him. You are also a poor Brahmin boy and you require these varahas, I know. So, he gave him 2 bags full of these gold varahas. So, the boy went away. So, if you transpose all this towards Kellogg's, so many products which are put by local players can be better than Kellogg's, or in fact better than Kellogg's, even in a city like Bangalore, the corn flakes. But still Kellogg's holds on. Why it is holding on? Because of its sustaining power. So, it wants to find out whether it can knock off these local players, and which it is doing almost regularly. You find that one after the other, the local players is getting knocked off. So, they are not able to really hold on to their market share. That market share itself is limited. Even that limited market share in their respective cities, they are not able to cling on due to this what do you call persistent onslaught by this brand Kellogg's. This is what competitive market can do. Now, this is these are some things which they are mentioning about these malls also. These malls are taking away the livelihood of these small players who are coming in push carts and all, coming out with vegetables, selling in front of each houses. Now that role is also being captured by many of these malls, like say there is now the big bazaar is in lot of problems right now. So, Reliance, Amazon fighting for the ownership of big bazaar. There are so many other these things also. You have got this grofers, you have got this big basket, all those types of things. So, you can order these vegetables from the comfort of your home and the delivery will come to your house maybe one day later. But in the process what is really happening? This push cart fellow who comes in front of each house says I have got this vegetable, this fruit or whatever, his livelihood is getting impinged, affected to a large extent. So, this is where when you are making some policies, some safeguarding exercise has to be done at the macro level, so that the smaller players will not get drastically affected. This is happening with respect to our MSMEs also. So, the MSMEs also many times are getting what you call serious knocks from these established players. So, some very difficult to sustain. So, happening with respect to so many of the MSMEs operating in Peenya belt in Bangalore only. The last block in this new matrix is what is the volume, where there are economies of scales and increased returns to scales operates, constrained by market segmentation and differentiation. Suppose you are operating where economies of scale come into play, then it gives you leverage to play with price of the product. Suppose economies of scale are not applicable with respect to your product, what you have to do is you have to see whether economies of scope can be operated, that is more like a customer order, okay. Whether these economies of scope can be done and the company is able to make a mark in that particular segment. So, this is in other words, when you are looking at economies of scale or economies of scope, the company gets constrained by market segmentation. So, the market segments where the company operates, they become smaller and smaller, and differentiating your product in this type of market segments becomes a real challenge for the company. The example that is mentioned is that of the car industry, no better place than India. You look at the present car industry in India, what is happening? So many well established names, you have the Toyota, you have the Honda, you have so many other players. In spite of all these players, still you find that Maruti Suzuki is in the leadership position in the marketplace. So, what is it that you can make out? What you can make out is the economies of scale are working to the advantage of Maruti Suzuki, helping it to retain its leadership position in the Indian market. So, though Suzuki by itself in the Japanese market is not a player at the same level as that of Honda or the Toyota. Okay. So, this is the type of example that you can think of in the Indian market. So, If you really see, the Indian auto industry is in cutthroat market. So many types of different incentives are offered to prospective customers to see that their car is sold. So Honda prides on its engine, saying that this is the best engine in the world. Nobody can beat the Honda engine, that is what it says. But still Toyota, one a very good car by all these things, come out with different product lines. You have different SUVs. So its Innova made a great mark. So before its Innova, you had a different product. So that product all of a sudden they ditched in the marketplace. So this is they said this is not the product we want to get into. Came out with Innova, okay, back in the year 2004, 2005. So this Innova has again proved to be a success in the Indian marketplace as well. So this is what the present day market looks like with respect to the new BCG matrix, where you are looking at competitive advantage, number of routes which you are getting, in which you can go, which you can make use of to get into this competitive advantage. We will stop here. We will continue with the G matrix in the next class. Thank you.